Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to another thing where I talk about things. Today, we're going to be talking about YouTube again. And, I generally haven't wanted to talk that much about YouTube controversy because I feel like I've talked about it so much over the years. YouTube has never been perfect. It will continue to not be perfect. And I do know that occasionally people get tired of hearing about YouTube. So, this is not a call to action or a big thing. What I do is, because I work on YouTube, because I make my living off of online video, I just keep up with the news a lot and I kind of watch what's going on. And a lot of you guys, you probably heard about the ad apocalypse, which I believe I talked about when that first came around. And you might also be hearing about the widespread demonetizations that are going on. And I haven't really made much fuss about it, but, I've had a bunch of my videos demonetized. Odd ones, some of them made sense, and then some of them were really odd. Like a bunch of my streams that I did on YouTube, they got demonetized. And Sarkatho got demonetized, but Sarkatho was kind of making fun of the idea of clickbait, so he had 5-ish ways to give money boobs. That got demonetized, and I didn't bother submitting it for review. Because even though it's harmless, I fear that if you submit for review, YouTube has always kind of had this system where everything is built around their algorithms, their stupid computer programs. So if you submit for something and somebody just kind of glances over your video and they're like, yeah, that's probably fine, then what that tells the computer program is that oh, maybe the rest of your content is suspect. So you can get into this snowball of everything. Once the computer program identifies a few things, and if it gets affirmed that the program was right, then the program trusts itself more and it'll start to just flag everything on your channel. So that's why some channels, you hear about them, they get nailed, a couple of their videos get nailed, and then after that everything else gets demonetized. It's because the algorithm will hit a couple of their channels and then go, yeah, I feel pretty confident that everything on this channel is bad, and then they just demonetize everything. I actually wasn't too, I had trouble with the first wave of this, but was only kind of lightly grazed compared to some people. This time I've definitely had some of my stuff just completely nailed. It's not making any ad revenue. And it's weird because it's this sort of double whammy of not only do you not make ad revenue, but once a thing gets flagged as not advertiser friendly, YouTube also stops putting it in the promoted video. So it substantially decreases the viewership on those videos because people are not being encouraged to watch them anymore. This matters more for larger channels. For me, I don't know if it's really made that much of an impact. I know that it's hit a couple of the mentally advanced episodes, and I don't know if they will approve of the mentally advanced stuff. And the reason is because deceptive children's programming is a real problem on YouTube, and it's one of the things that's going on. And in fact, their recent crackdowns on this are what prompted me to make this video. It feels like there's enough information now that I can actually talk about what's going on. I mean, I follow the news on other things, but I feel like YouTube news is among the less controversial things I could talk about. I've also been very closely following the politics on this new tax plan. I don't know how controversial it is to say I'm disappointed about this new tax plan, but, point is that's politics, and people get up in arms about politics. I get a little exhausted seeing people having their petty arguments in the comments about this and that. So yes, YouTube, much better than talking about actual, more important things. So what's going on with YouTube? So if you haven't followed, there was an adpocalypse. I did talk about this in the past. Basically, a couple of news outlets did some reporting, and they were like, hey, so Ford Motors is being advertised next to ISIS videos, ISIS, they fix up these Ford trucks to be technicals, they can shoot down airplanes with their Ford truck mounted guns. And I wish it were that sensical. It's actually not what's happening. It's just really that YouTube is running ads on anyone who opts in to run ads. And, you'd find that videos with extremist content were quite popular because a lot of people were tuning in to argue with that, or to, because they were themselves extreme and they like videos that agreed with them. For a good while, you were seeing videos what's his name? Some I don't know, you just got these really controversial YouTubers who are just stirring up drama and getting other big people to shoot back at them. And for a little while there, YouTube drama was one of the biggest things that you would see on YouTube. It was very popular. And so those guys were just getting huge. And so, you had the whole the Gamergate thing where it just got incredibly vitriolic. Both sides just immediately went straight for the most low down kinds of things. Everybody was just being kind of disgusting during all that, but that got huge. The whole system just kind of got to be really kind of gross like that. And advertisers realized that they were running ads, you know, trying to promote like Gillette razors and Ford trucks and this and that against all this really kind of awful content. And it's weird because like advertisers, there's been enough time that like they've been doing reports on this and they've been talking to advertisers and they're like, so like what did you think was going on YouTube? And what happened? Like I have someone in our Discord, for example, who was really mad because he was like I can't believe all these advertisers are doing this to all these YouTubers. You know, they're messing up all this independent talent. And the problem is, it's not really the advertisers. It's kind of the whole Google system. It's the way that they've approached things. What Google has been doing is they've been trying more and more to lead advertisers to believe that YouTube as a platform is all about independent creation, and it's all about, like, you know, there's all these young artists who are rising up in the world and we're supporting them. And that's what a lot of people who watch YouTube think that YouTube is about. But what they kind of omit is the fact that for a long time now they've been using computer programs to mostly promote content that just maximizes YouTube's own revenue. And of course people say, like, YouTube is a business, this makes sense, this is what they do. But like I've talked about before, what it turns out maximizes YouTube's revenue is when people make long videos, because you can put a lot of different ads in the videos. I think the most common things, they say every 7 minutes you're supposed to run an ad. So if you have a longer video and people are actually watching it all the way through, you can put multiple ads in a long video. You know, every 7 minutes you get an ad. So a 15-minute video gets 2 ads. If you can keep people watching for longer than that, then your content is even better for YouTube. So YouTube likes to promote longer video. They want to run at least 2 ads per video. If you're not running about 2 ads per video, you're less likely to perform as well. You may still get promoted, but if you're only running like a single ad, then the SEO doesn't really like you as much. The search engine optimization doesn't really like you as much. So there's that. And then the other thing they look for is they want to see that you're posting frequently. So if you're doing, you know, 1 video a day or even up to 3 videos a day, like I think Game Grumps for a while was doing like 3 videos a day. I don't know if they still are. I quit watching them because I got you know, they drowned me out in volume and I just like couldn't, you know, it was sort of like, I guess I could tune in randomly and see where they're at or whatever, but it was kind of like I didn't really want to follow this anymore. But point is, though, they were posting like frequently, very, very frequently, and it was the same thing. It was like long videos. So basically, if you were on the Game Grumps channel, they weren't just posting videos, you know, like once a day. They were posting, like if you think of it as a sheer quantity of ads, it would be like, you know, 6 ads running per day. Every time their subscribers would go and look at their videos, like every video was 2 ads, and then they would post like 3 videos a day. So that's 6 ads. 6 ads that they were running, and so very lucrative for YouTube, and YouTube was looking for channels that were doing this and then would promote them. And then of course you had these other factors, these other criteria, and the bottom line is that all the criteria for getting big and for getting famous on YouTube was quantifiable in some way. And it's all not like absolutely quantifiable, you can't just do like the one thing, but you're seeing this consistently across the whole platform where somebody will take like a thing, it's like a derivative thing, so people are already looking for this, you get traffic that flows in, and you know, the Google bot's looking for that. It's long, so it runs multiple ads, Google bot's looking for that. They're posting frequently, so they're running lots of ads, Google bot's running for that, and once you meet all these criteria, you get pushed up to the top, and you become very popular, very famous, and then you're able to survive on YouTube. The problem is that this did not work out very well, if at all. I mean, it almost never works for high production types of content or very creative types of content, because if you have to post a video every day or 3 times a day or oftentimes even just once a week, it's not a very good length of time to think up a good script for an entertainment product. You know, you can't really do a whole lot with it, like you couldn't really do a lot of animation, you know, special effects is kind of out the window. There's no way to just produce that content very quickly. When YouTube first got started, there were a lot of people who were doing that sort of thing. There was lots of animation and lots of special effects, and that was kind of what made YouTube cool and what made everyone want to be a part of YouTube. But that was back in the day, you know, this is no longer how the platform works. So what YouTube did is they approached all these advertisers, and they would have these big expos and these big things, and they would say, like, you know, this is all the cool stuff that's on YouTube. And they would show off all these things, and even now they're running advertisements. They're like, yeah, you know, a lot of people are watching YouTube just for nostalgia, you know, like we got like old Popeye videos, and we got this, and we got that. And so they really kind of promote this sort of ideal of what YouTube used to be, or what people thought YouTube was going to be. And they really didn't tell the advertisers what YouTube was becoming or what YouTube had become, which was just about this sheer, you know, volume, and all the kind of ickiness that would entail with that sort of thing. So a lot of advertisers not really being very familiar with this whole model because it hadn't existed before. Like, you have to remember, big businesses, they have a turnover rate, like, every 3 years or whatever, you might lose a guy who's in charge of, whatever kind of thing, or whatever this and that. There's tons of different market analysts and whatever. And when you've got this new frontier, these companies don't have a lot of market data on it. So they're kind of looking at YouTube, and there's no market model for this really yet. There's nothing that's definitely figured out. They're still kind of trying to work it out. And so what they did is YouTube pitched them this thing, and they kind of just trusted YouTube in a way to have their own best interest at heart. So Google said, we've got this program. They've actually got different tiers of ads, of course. And the top tier is like, this is our best, our top 5% of all YouTubers. Those are the guys who get the best ads. And those are people like you'd imagine would be like Markiplier and PewDiePie, who, they're the kind of the faces of YouTube. PewDiePie's been distanced a little bit from the whole thing. YouTube doesn't really want to own him ever since the controversies that he got into. But that's kind of what they tried to pitch, is they'd be like, yeah, these guys, they're like incidentally huge, but also we've got these other up and coming artists, they're not all the same thing. It's not all just like a thing. But they actually pitched their YouTube premium stuff as curated, or they kind of led people to believe that there was a certain amount of curation. Advertisers kind of went into this thinking that human beings were in control of this system to a certain extent, and that the top 5% of YouTube channels were, surely being watched by a lot of people, and therefore, people knew what was on those channels. Like Google wouldn't allow completely heinous stuff to get to the top, to get to their top 500 watched channels or whatever. But lo and behold, as it turned out, a lot of the stuff in the top 500%, the top 500 channels, or the most viewed channels, this premium content thing, many of those channels were just exploiting the system, the Google bot. Because as it turns out, humanity had nothing to do with what was getting popular on YouTube. The stuff that was getting watched a lot is not necessarily beloved. Many times it's bizarre. Other times it's getting a lot of views from kids. Other times it's just that there's like this recommended video thing. Like you'd get these recommended videos and it would just be like something bizarre. So you might be watching fairly normal stuff and then it just goes into like bizarre. And you can't turn away because it's like a horrible train wreck. Like you're just driving down the street and you're like, oh, what a beautiful countryside. And then there's like a horrible like train wreck with like alligators, and there's fire, and there was like a clown over here and his head's turned around backwards, and it's like, you don't really want to see this, but you gotta you gotta look like, how did the alligators get involved? Like, oh my god, like is there a man inside that alligator? Like, what happened? So yeah, like you just kind of have this is kind of how the system went. So you started to get a lot of channels, because kids are especially vulnerable to this sort of exploitation. You got a lot of channels that were doing things like Anna, Elsa, Frozen, Disney characters, where people started dressing up as like Spider-Man or whatever, and then just doing these weird, like sexually inappropriate kinds of skits. And they would just do them every day, and they would be like 14 minutes long. And they were doing this with animations as well, but it would be like cheap as dirt animations, no voice acting, like no real skill. It was just like the cheapest thing that a small group of like maybe one or two people in like, I don't know, the Philippines or North Korea or whatever could put together in a short amount of time. Like the cheapest possible studios were just like throwing out these like kids videos. And they're super weird. Like I gotta be honest, like I've watched some of them, and when I watch them, I do watch them all the way through because they're so weird. Like there was one where Anna and Elsa were singing like the ABCs, and I think that when they got to Z, there was like a giant minion from Despicable Me, and he was like blue and he glowed, and like they all surrounded him and they were all like Z, and I don't know, it's just the weirdest stuff. Like it's not like good, but it's so unusual. Like the novelty is there and you just have to watch it. Like I don't know, if you haven't seen any of these Anna, Elsa, Frozen videos, I recommend that you watch at least one before they go extinct, because it's crazy and they're worth millions of dollars on YouTube. Like they're the most successful things on YouTube right now for what they are. It's nuts. So yeah, so anyway, advertisers, like I say, they believe that they were on a curated system, and they hadn't really delved very deep into what YouTube was providing them, because YouTube didn't really provide them tools to see where their ads were running. Like I, for example, have been using AdSense to promote the J cartoons, and I have no idea where the J cartoons ads are showing up. I may very well be on these Anna Elsa videos as well, and I have no way of knowing it. YouTube doesn't report to me where these videos are being shown, where any of my ads are being shown. They just assure me that I'm gaining an audience, people are looking at my stuff, and everything's fine. So advertisers kind of in the same boat. They're starting to get more responses from YouTube, where YouTube is now starting to say like, oh, well, yeah, I guess maybe you might want to know where your ads are showing up, and they're starting to show their advertisers kind of where things are. But they're still forcing advertisers to do their own auditing. And since these are like multi-million-dollar ad deals, that means that these advertisers have tons and tons and tons of crap to sift through. And since they've been doing the audits, the reports that are coming back is that the advertisers are sort of shocked at exactly how little good content is considered top YouTube material. Tons of it is really awful. Most of it is just like the kind of stuff that you would expect a stupid robot to select, and you wouldn't think that human beings are actually watching a lot of it. And this is the thing that's really blowing advertisers away, is they're kind of watching this material and they're realizing that none of it is really like human. It's all kind of like a weird facsimile of human. It's like, you know, it's like a joke almost, like when you have that robot, like the robot trying to blend in, like, yes, hello fellow humans, I am here walking on my two legs. I would love to go ride a bicycle, as we humans often do, and brush my teeth and wear a hat. And you know, so it's kind of like these are the types of videos that they're finding, is they're like, hello fellow humans, I too enjoy the Anna Elsa video. I enjoy the diaper fetish because I am obsessed with my bodily functions, just like all other fellow humans. And so this is kind of what they're finding has been in control of their advertising, is this stupid, like, confused robot that doesn't know what humans are actually like. But it's trying its best to to mimic what humans are interested in. So anyway though, so what YouTube has done is to solve the problem, and it's really hilarious, is they've decided to solve the problem by using the same problem. Like, they're basically throwing gasoline on the fire. They're like, oh shoot, everything's on fire. How do we put this out? I know, get a whole bunch of gasoline. Like, I think that what they're trying to do is they think if they overfeed the fire, then pretty soon the fire will just blow up. It'll explode, you know, like they do in the cartoons. So what YouTube is doing right now, the reason why everyone's stuff is being demonetized is because after realizing all this stuff is horrible, and that they don't really know how to solve it because they've created a fellow human to review all the videos in the first place, they've created a second fellow human to look at all the videos that are being promoted and decide whether or not they deserve to run ads. And the problem is that the new fellow human is a little bit dumber and a little bit more strict than the original fellow human, and so the new fellow human goes around and they're like, oh, hello fellow human, I see this J cartoon discusses the moon. The moon is a very inappropriate context, like other fellow humans, I am very concerned over whether or not the moon is an appropriate concept. I understand sometimes that the moon resembles a ball, which is said to resemble other parts of the human body, which, like other humans, I am obsessed with, but do not find appropriate to be in ads. Therefore, I will stop running ads on your television program and inform my fellow human that we should stop promoting your content entirely. So basically now we have two fellow humans who are reviewing everything, and neither of them understand anything about what's on the platform. It's pretty incredible. We have a theory that what's happening is that the new fellow human is not just using keywords and stuff like that to decide what's bad about a video, but they're also using YouTube's text-to-speech recognition thing, or whatever that is. You know, like you've seen all those funny captions when people turn on like YouTube closed captions, and then the YouTube bots try and figure out what's being said, and a lot of times the dialogue comes back hilarious because YouTube has no idea what people are saying in their videos. Well, if that's the case, it would explain why our fellow human is taking away advertising from so many videos, because really it's just reviewing as much content as it can and then trying to figure out what's being said, and then it makes a ton of mistakes, and it goes, I could have sworn I heard someone say something about an inappropriate part of their body. Fellow humans, we cannot watch this video, and so they just revoke all the advertising on it. So yes. So basically, they've got a problem that's created by letting their entire system be run by a bot. And so their solution was to throw another bot at the problem. And now the second bot doesn't know what it's doing, and it's just demonetizing everything randomly, and nobody has any idea what the heck is going on. And a lot of these top channels, these inappropriate channels that are being run next to advertisers, they are still running ads. They're not really being taken out. They're just, being swept up in the same chaos as everyone else at best. So what's happening now is that YouTube recently, they took down one of the highest profile kiddie channels that were out there. This was one weird, it was called Freak Family or something like that, where this single father tormented his children and made them play with toys and things like that on YouTube. And it's just really weird. It's really creepy, really gross. They do things to their kids. There's one video that I saw that they were talking about where his daughter's face is all bloody because I don't know, she just went to the dentist or something happened. Just weird. It's just really creepy, weird, almost fetishist, just weird stuff. And YouTube, They had 8 million subscribers, and they made millions of dollars. They were in YouTube's preferred advertising program. And this is the thing, like I say, this is what's really making advertisers upset, is that Google was taking the top dollar from advertisers. They were taking basically TV budgets, for ads, and they were running it with this Freak Family stuff, and other things that are just as bad as the Freak Family. And promising advertisers that it's all curated, or that at least, it's the best stuff that YouTube has to offer. And it's really kind of the worst stuff that YouTube has to offer that got popular. So yes, so they took down the Freak Family thing, and this is important. This is good. It's nice that they've finally done this, because we've been aware that this content was popular for a really long time. I don't know how Google didn't know, and I'm sure that Google probably did know that this was a problem. It's just that they were making a lot of money on it, and they didn't care, because the Freak Family was running long videos. They were running lots of ads. They were running lots of really high budget ads, and Google was just because there was no accountability for them. It didn't matter. They weren't worried about what kind of content was being shown, just so long as they were making a lot of money on it. Now that it matters what kind of content is being shown, though, now they're deleting it. It's good, like I say, but the concern might be that now they may turn around and start deleting parodies, things that are kind of more legit, stuff like the Mentally Advanced series. Like I say, the Mentally Advanced series has been hit by demonetizations, and I've submitted for review, but nobody has reviewed any of those videos yet, so I don't know what they're going to do. I'm also well aware that because these people are probably just a bunch of unpaid interns, it's really impossible to know how they're going to react to the Mentally Advanced series and whether or not they're going to let it go. It's their policy has been changed now to say they don't want to run ads on family-friendly characters that are being used even for satire. Because of this abuse. Them taking down this channel is the first sign they've shown that they really care about that abuse. But again, I don't know how they're going to feel about parodies involving kid shows like My Little Pony. There's a lot of pony channels out there, so they may hit quite a few people. I haven't heard news of anyone getting taken down for doing My Little Pony parodies, but the way that they've had no focus and no control kind of indicates that when they do get around to it, they're probably going to nail a lot of pony channels. I won't be surprised if it becomes a problem for me and anyone else who did anything with My Little Pony. It doesn't feel like YouTube has any real discretion or ability to control itself, so it's probably going to be a mess there. But all in all, though, I mean, when you look at it from this perspective of well, if you're not involved and you don't really, suppose you don't really know anyone who's going to be affected by this, you're not really involved, it's just really fascinating to kind of watch this whole situation evolve and develop, because there's still nobody else who really competes with YouTube in the actual YouTube game. Newgrounds, surprisingly, although it's basically dead compared to how it used to be, I find this still the #1 place for promoting the kind of content that I make. Whenever I produce a new J cartoon, I only get a couple of hundred views on it, but people, they vote for it. They seem to receive them well, or at least okay, depending on the episode. I get comments from people on that. It gets a couple hundred views. It may get featured by one of the Peabot daily picks because we did well and we got a lot of positive votes for the volume of viewership. We get a few more views. Jim and the Romantic Journey did all right there. You know, some of our parodies did okay there. We just find that, like, Newgrounds right now is the top competitor with YouTube, and considering that everyone thinks that Newgrounds is basically dead, that really tells you what a state the whole idea of online entertainment is really in. For a while there, people were talking about going to VidMe, but when I post stuff on VidMe, you know, if I get 100 views, that's a good day. You know, most of the time I get 30 to 40 views or whatever. Facebook is kind of the same. Facebook is weird. They talk about how many people are reached, but I think that the actual number of viewers you get on Facebook is pretty limited. They promote your stuff better if you upload directly to them, but all in all, Facebook is kind of in the same boat as YouTube. They kind of want the same sort of thing. They want derivative content that's long so they can run their ads on it, and so on and so forth. They don't really have ads for video yet on Facebook, but they're trying to figure out a system. They're also trying to figure out how they're going to dodge the copyright bullets that YouTube had to deal with. And everyone's kind of in that same boat where they want to be a competitor with YouTube, but no one knows how to curate that much content. Because if you leave it up to humans, then people will abuse the system that you give them. And if you leave it up to robots, robots are not yet smart enough to figure out what content is actually good. And the robots are, as YouTube is demonstrating, really not curating very good content most of the time. Like, the robots just don't know what's good. So yes, we're seeing a couple of different strategies that work on YouTube as far as what makes money. We're kind of talking about, like, there's a lot of channels now that just produce a ton of, like, garbage. And what they do, though, is they produce garbage, they produce garbage, they produce garbage, and then they produce some piece of garbage that YouTube's algorithms really like, and then that video gets, like, really big, you know, so it'll be, like, 8,000 views, 10,000 views, you know, 4,000 views, 20,000 views, 1,000,000 views. Bang! Like, one video gets 1,000,000 views, and they get, like, if they get one of those every month, then every single month, they make enough money to keep going like that. So we're seeing channels that kind of do this sort of thing, where there's no real channel building. You know, just sort of like this kind of like, it's like playing slots almost, except for, you know, the only thing you're putting in is your personal time, you know. So some channels are just doing it like this. They just like play the slots until eventually they hit jackpot, and then they keep going back to this. Other people are kind of, they get in the rut of doing the same kind of content, where you get, like, for example, the reviewers, the analysts, or whatever, who just talk about other people's content. And as long as that content remains big, then they get kind of an influx of viewership from these other groups. And then you get the self-sustaining big guys who get so huge that they become a brand, and then YouTube is promoting them as a brand because people are naturally looking for them. Stuff like Game Grumps, which are probably going to stay big indefinitely just because they have become a brand. And becoming your own brand is kind of where you've made it, but it's also really weird because, again, on YouTube, when you become a brand on YouTube, you're not really, like, branding. Like, branding is an actual kind of thing, you know, like you. It's a planned thing. You really don't just, like, become like if I just suddenly got 1,000,000 views tomorrow, like, Greg wouldn't be a brand, really, not to the ordinary marketer, but to YouTube you become a brand, you know, like PewDiePie is a brand, even though PewDiePie himself doesn't really have any firm branding. He doesn't really do very much as far as marketing goes. YouTube does most of that marketing for him. The program recognizes him as a thing, whereas humans just know him because the program promotes him, you know, to heck and back. Same with a lot of these other guys. So yes, as far as whether or not YouTube's system is going to improve anytime in the near future, I actually would not hold my breath. I think for everyone who's concerned about the way that things have been going, and they're saying, like, you know, I really hope they get their act together. My expectation is that YouTube is not going to get their act together soon. It's probably going to be at least a good several months. Things might calm down, but I suspect that just like with their copyright system, they're going to continue to have constant abuse, constant problems, and not enough resources to deal with the issue. That's just, you know, YouTube in a nutshell. They never have enough resources to deal with their problems, so they always solve everything with a program, and the programs are never smart enough. Whether or not this is going to lead to YouTube toppling, I don't know, because the hurdles that face them are the same hurdles that are going to face everyone else. YouTube takes a very opaque and insincere approach. A lot of people feel lied to right now. I've been reading that brand reps are talking about that they feel like they've been lied to by YouTube like YouTube is dishonest with them. A lot of YouTubers feel like they've been cheated and swindled. I've been in this for long enough that I don't even feel like surprised anymore. Like when all my stuff got demonetized, I didn't even really get angry. Like I was just like, man, like this is kind of YouTube. This is just what it's like on YouTube, you know? This is just the way that they run things. And that's probably bad, actually. I gotta be honest, when it gets to the point where like YouTube is just taking your ads away and you're just like, you know, you don't care, it's probably a sign that things have been bad for a really long time, and that, you know, I don't know. It's Stockholm Syndrome. You just get used to it. You're just like, yeah, I guess YouTube's not that bad. But they are pretty terrible, so everyone who's mad at them, they have the right to be angry. I think YouTube is got to take kind of a more serious look at what they're doing and ask if maybe they shouldn't try to integrate some humanity into their system somehow. They rely so much on bots. I just don't think that, like, obviously that's not working. They need at least a little bit of human touch. They need some human guidance, and not just human guidance in the form of like 4-year-olds don't change the channel, you know. They can't let confused children determine what's popular on their website, you know, not if they really want advertisers to take them seriously. And I have a theory that YouTube is kind of winding up for a big collapse here soon. Because of the way that they run things like this, the way that they're focused on volume, you notice that every single year, like the reports say that YouTube ad revenue is falling. The CPM is going down, and they're trying to sucker advertisers into paying more. Like I say, you've got this preferred brand thing that they're saying, like, yeah, just spend all your money, you know, on the preferred brands. But advertisers are finding that they're being swindled there. So some of them just haven't come back. Like I think like AT&T and a couple of the other companies haven't come back since the adpocalypse. And others of them, when they do come back, they're spending less because they're feeling like they've been cheated. And so, like, again, you know, we're looking at another year where at the end of the year, advertisers are paying less for ads. And YouTube is continuing to try to maximize profits by just selling more video and having more video go out. But the problem is that at some point, YouTube is not going to be able to sell more video. Like, they're going to reach the maximum number of viewers. There's 6 billion people in the world, and, you know, I'm not saying that all 6 billion people or 7 billion people are going to watch YouTube, but they will reach the maximum number of people that are going to watch. Like, they won't be able to really grow more. They can't just work on sheer volume. And once they maximize their volume, they're going to collapse because ads will fall again the next year. And because it's a huge volume thing, like, you know, if ads fall by like 10%, then, you know, everything across the whole channel is just like, everything's just going to collapse. It's all going to fall down. So that's kind of my thought. I don't know when exactly they're going to reach their plateau, but it has to exist. Like I say, like, they can't just grow infinitely. Like, they can't just have this plan of like, well, we'll just grow until everything stabilizes. I think that unless they really get their act together, there's not going to be a stabilization. That's going to continue to decline. And people, too, are going to get tired of watching PewDiePie and Game Grumps and stuff like that. I mean, like, those videos are okay if you're into that kind of stuff, but they're very much the same, you know, over and over again. Every time you turn into Game Grumps, you're just kind of getting the same sort of content. It's really not very exciting. You're really not on the edge of your seat. It's not really that engaging. It's just kind of like, you know, watchable. Like, if you got an hour of downtime, you could watch it. But I can't watch more than what's in my free time. So, like I say, they'll reach that upper ceiling. You know, the volume limit will be tapped out. And then YouTube's whole business model is going to fail because they can't go any bigger. You know, this will be it. So at this point, they'll have to work on having content that's worth advertising on so that advertisers will actually want to spend money and compete to spend money, as opposed to just throwing their money into a garbage bin and hoping that some people like some of the garbage that's in the bin, because, man, there's a lot of garbage in here. So, yeah, that's my current theory, is that YouTube's kind of headed on a sort of a disastrous trajectory. And I don't know what's going on with them. I only recently found out that apparently the CEO of YouTube is like the wife of one of the Google founders. So there's kind of like this weird nepotism going on with the leadership. I don't know if that's like, I don't know what kind of leader she is, but I hear that she's not very good. But then again, people are mad at YouTube right now, so maybe she's fine. She's just taking a lot of flack for running a program that's difficult to run. But I do feel like there's definitely been a lot of irresponsibility and not a lot of good communication from YouTube. So So yes, that's the YouTube news. It's interesting. It's interesting. You're probably hearing much more outraged reports from other YouTubers. For my part, I make most of my living on Patreon right now. So if this outrages you, you know, if your favorite YouTube artists are on Patreon and you care to see them survive, then go support them on Patreon. That's where the actual like, I don't know if Patreon's gonna live forever. It's difficult to say, you know, things are still all developing with all of this stuff, but at least Patreon feels like it has a model that's based around, you know, the well-being of artists, you know, rather than just expanding until you can expand no more. I don't know. It's like YouTube feels weird. They have their priorities all mixed up. They're not trying to build content creators. They're just trying to make as much money as possible in a short amount of time as possible so that they can say that they're profitable. So, I don't know. That's where we're at. Anyway, YouTube, hope that wasn't like a depressing or morose sort of video. It wasn't my intent. It's just sort of like, this is what's going on with the platform right now. This is why people are being demonetized. Even if everyone gets mad, I don't think it's going to get better. You know, not because nobody wants it to get better, but just because YouTube doesn't like want to really, I don't know, like YouTube just has their own priorities. Their heads are on backwards. They're just kind of gonna do what they do. So yes, I suppose that'll be it. Thanks for joining me, everybody. I'll catch you all next time.